Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. So, looking over here on the side, you can see that our procedures each day are going to be the same, where you're going to have a slideshow presentation with things for you to complete, followed with an end of lesson Google form. And then don't forget you have your iReady path that you need to complete 15 minutes each day for a total of 60 minutes by the end of tomorrow. So, yesterday was a work session Wednesday, and I just kind of want to touch base a little bit about this because I do post activities, and you are expected to check your Google Classroom and complete those activities. So, some of you are getting a reteaching activity as well as an enrichment assignment. I am going to mark it as incomplete. I also was really disappointed with the amount of students that completed the estimation activity again and the enrichment, and the reteaching lesson. Also, this was your day to catch up on any missed work, and I didn't have any students who owed work turn anything in yesterday. So please make sure that you're not just taking the day off, that you're using it for how it's meant to be used. So let's take a look at our estimation activity. So as you can see here, we were looking at cheese balls, and the initial one was trying to figure out how many cheese balls fit on that cookie sheet. And there were 286 cheese balls that covered that whole entire cookie tray here. And then you were asked to try and figure out, using that information, how many you would fit on this plate. Now, it was interesting because some of you gave me an answer that was bigger than 286, which surprised me because the plate definitely looks smaller than the cookie tray. So make sure that you're using that number sense there. Is it reasonable that if about 300 fit on the cookie sheet, that more than 300 could fit on a plate that is smaller? All right, so let's take a look. So here you can see as many as possible on this plate, and the official answer is 156. So remember, we said we were doing this Price is Right style, which means you had to be as close as possible without going over. So the overall winner was Gabby. Congratulations, 143. And she's in my first class. And if you wanted a winner for my second class, our third switch of the day, Matt with 140. So Gabby, overall winner out of everybody, but good job, Matt, for the green group as well. So you can see that a little bit more than 100 less fit on here. All right. So taking a look, our math standard is still the same. We're looking at attributes and classifying two-dimensional figures based on these attributes. We're going to take a quick review of angles and classifying triangles based on angles. And then we're going to look at how we can also classify triangles based on their side lengths. This is also a review from fourth grade as well. So you did have classifying triangles in fourth grade. So just a review, an attribute is a new vocabulary word probably for you. So you want to make sure that you're familiar with its meaning and start to use it when you are speaking about geometry. So an attribute is a term used when we're talking about any characteristic of an object or shape. And we can be talking about the number of sides or the number of angles. We can also talk about the length of sides or the type of angles or the angle measure. And then category is a collection of objects grouped together based on the attributes they have in common. So if you take a look over here, these are all triangles. So the category would be a triangle. Why are they grouped together? Well, we group them based off of the number of sides. They all have 3 sides. So then we can go a little bit further. We talked about how we can look at the attribute of their angles to classify them even further. So an acute triangle has all angles that are acute. A right triangle has that square corner, so it would have one right angle. The other two will always be acute, but we would call this a right triangle because it has one right angle. And finally, an obtuse triangle because there's that one obtuse angle. So again, just as a little review, you can see that this is considered an acute triangle because all three of these angles are less than our benchmark of a right angle. Over here, this one would be considered obtuse because of this angle right here being larger than a square corner. And then lastly, this would be considered a right triangle because you can see right here is that right angle where I can fit a perfect square in there. All right, so now let's move on. So you can classify triangles based on their angles, but you can also now classify them based on their sides. And that's what we're going to look at today. So coming down the side over here, we have something called an equilateral triangle. That means all three sides are congruent. And I mentioned that word in our last video on Tuesday. Congruent means the same. So an equilateral triangle is when all of these sides are exactly the same. Now, this word here says isosceles. An isosceles triangle is one that has two sides that are the same. So it has two congruent sides. So when I look at this isosceles triangle, I can see that the left side and the right side are the two sides that have an equal length. Remember, we're looking at the length of the sides today. And finally, so we have this one here with 3 equal sides. This one has 2 equal sides, and a scalene triangle has no equal sides. So none of the sides are congruent. So everything's going to have a different length. Now, one thing that you might see will be tick marks to show you when sides are equal. And we've used tick marks in class before. So in this case, you can see that each of these sides has one tick mark. So that means this side is equal to this side, which is equal to this side. So if I have 3 equal sides, this would be, take a look over here. Which one do you think it is if it has 3 equal sides? An equilateral triangle. All right, so now looking at the next one, you can see I have 2 sides that have tick marks with one of them on it, and then this one here at the base has 2 tick marks. Well, that means that these 2 sides here, the left side and the right side, are equal to each other, and this bottom one is not. So based off of the tick marks, I have a two sides that are congruent. So which of those on the left, equilateral, isosceles, scalene, do you think it is if it has 2 congruent sides? It's isosceles. And the last triangle over here, you can see that I have one side with 1 tick mark, 2 tick marks, and 3 tick marks. Since none of the sides have the same amount of tick marks, none of the sides are congruent. And that means that it will be scalene. Now, you won't always see tick marks. And oftentimes, scalene triangles won't have any tick marks. You might see an isosceles triangle just with them on the 2 sides that are the same and none down here. So you have to be really flexible with understanding what shows sides that are equal. So let's get some more practice with this. All right. So here you can see we have 6 different triangles, and we're going to use this chart to go ahead and identify what type of triangle it is. So here again, I see those tick marks, 1, 2, 3, which means all 3 sides are the same. So there's your equilateral triangle. I would like for you to go ahead and push pause on the video and attempt the rest of them by yourself. When you're done, come back and push play, and we will go over the answers. All right, so let's take a look at number 2. Number 2, I can see that there's a tick mark on the left side and the right side, which means the left and the right side are equal to each other, but there's nothing on the bottom, which means that this bottom or the base of the triangle does not measure the same as these two sides. So when I go over here and I look at my chart, which one means a two congruent sides? All right, so you're gonna see isosceles. So the next one here, you can see that there's no tick marks on the sides. So that means none of these sides are congruent. So that means it is a scalene triangle. All right, so again, looking at this one, no equal sides because there are no tick marks. So that means once again, I have another scalene. Hopefully you're doing okay so far, going over these answers and making sure that you're using the definitions on the left. Here you can see that all the sides are the same because there's a tick mark on each side. So that means it is an equilateral triangle. And the very last one, you can see tick marks here and here. So it is isosceles. All right. So let's go ahead now and take a look at this slide because, believe it or not, every triangle can actually get classified two different ways. Every triangle can have two names. You can talk about them by their sides and by their angles. So taking a look at this first one, we're going to classify it by its angle. And you can see, well, is this an acute triangle, a right triangle, or an obtuse triangle? Well, I see this right here, this little square right there. That means, okay, I have a right triangle. And now I'm going to talk about it by its sides. Well, I can see, well, this and this are the same because of the tick marks. So that means that this is an isosceles triangle. So you can call this a right isosceles triangle. So you can see that here you have by the angle and here you have by the sides. All right, go ahead, push pause on the video and try that next one by yourself. And when you're ready, come back and push play. All right, so let's take a look. Even though this is tilted on its side a little bit, I can see that this symbol here means that this is a right angle. So I know I have another right triangle. I don't see any tick marks. So that means that none of the sides are congruent. And remember that word congruent means the same. So that means I have a right triangle with no equal sides. So you should have been thinking a right scalene triangle. All right. So now what you're going to do is go to the next slide. You're going to complete the Google form for today's lesson. Please make sure that you submit. Every day, I'm only getting about 9 to 10 students who are turning in their slideshow presentation. So it just makes it a little bit harder for me to have to go through each of your presentations and check. So please make sure that you hit the turn in button. It should be at the top part of the screen over this way when you're done. I'm curious if anybody has tried to play the banana hunt game. I didn't get any emails, but I am curious to see. So if you did try it out, shoot me an email and let me know. All right, guys, if you have any questions about triangles or anything else, again, just email me and I will get back to you. Have a great day.